Hello and welcome again to another episode of Dave Trippin Couch Therapy. This time talking about staying positive while you're living abroad in Japan and kind of my mentality and approach for this sort of thing. But first I wanted to talk a little bit about my absence in the previous week or only releasing the one video. It was a result of wanting to study tutorials for editing, and as well I did a trip into Yokohama and Tokyo and did this 2-day film binge, and I'm now working on a project which I will release on Saturday, so keep an eye out for that because I believe it's a true evolution of what I've been learning and kind of the direction that I want to go with the more creative side of things that I think is going to be awesome. Bottom line, it'll be a lot of fun. I think you'll really like it. So that's what I've been doing, that's where I'm going, and I'm back this week to do a couple more question answer videos. So jumping into this, talking about positivity, I'll read the email first. Dear Dave, for a while now I've been wanting to go to Japan, and more recently I was introduced to the prospect of going over as a teacher, although I am still about a year and a half off completing some requirements. Blah blah, prepping. However, one thing has concerned me, and that is the majority of people I find on YouTube posting about their experiences are usually negative. These responses usually talk about how the teachers or kids are mean or disrespectful, companies don't do a good job looking over their employees, how Japan is horrible, wish they had never come, followed by warning to viewers to stay away. Not all have been this way, but a good majority, and some do pros and cons and balance them. Your channel has been one of the few that is seemingly overwhelmingly positive, even turning some of the negatives into a positive. What is it that you have done and or still currently doing that has made your teaching experience so good? Were you just lucky, or is there a trick or method to it? One last question. I am from Texas. Is there Dr. Pepper in Japan? It originated in Texas. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that other one, but I can talk about this kind of like positivity and negativity thing first and jump into it for my approach and everything. And I would say two things first to kind of preface this, is that I think actually where you focus your attention is what you're going to see a lot of. And I know you may believe that there's a lot of negativity out there with people who are living in Japan, but I honestly believe that you will find tons and tons of people just as much who are doing positive stuff. So don't let that, because you found this group, that you don't search out others. I believe that they're out there. The reason I would say that maybe they're in the minority and they're not the sort of rule, they are the exception maybe, is that positivity is good and I feel is the right way to go ultimately, but violence, sadness, all of these things sell. Everybody stares at the train wreck when they go by, right? And so I think every one of us is somewhat tempted to use that as a means to draw viewership to a channel, to be completely honest. There's it's just human nature that when you see something that's usually more negative, like if you compare these two titles, Why I Love Being in Japan and Why I Hate It, strangely enough, we tend towards the juicier stuff because gossip is much more interesting than hearing about how everything is sunshine and rainbows, and so people are drawn to that. Because people are drawn to that, it creates this kind of feedback loop where you see people talking about these negative experiences. But like I said, that aside, there is a huge range, and I think if you search out the positive, that you find it. So that's commenting basically on if you're looking and seeing channels, the sort of things that you see. I've commented before, there's tons. I'll do a quick couple of shout outs now. There's although they don't need it, I love them, they're so funny. There's lots to learn from them, editing wise, comedy, everything. Simon and Martina, overridingly positive channel. Always doing great stuff, really, really uplifting. I think they provide levity for hundreds of thousands of people's days when they make videos. There's Abroad in Japan. He's got great, dry humor. He does well-edited videos that are really informative. You have Maike in Japan. She's wonderful, from Belgium. I did a tour with her. There's Ozzy. There's so many people, if you look for the positive, who will share that with you. And if they are sharing negative aspects, which I hope that I don't shield people from that entirely, because I like to more consider everything than show one side, they at least consider the negatives in a way that they might be overcome, and an approach that acknowledges them but doesn't give up hope to them or warn people off, or kind of give into maybe an emotional reaction that they've had to a very negative situation, which now clouds their whole vision of ever experiencing something like that positively again. It's now forever lost because they had a bad experience. So yeah, look for these channels. I mean, one of some I mentioned are big, a few are a little smaller or whatever, but they're totally there. So there's a few. Maybe I put them in the links, maybe not. You look them up. take responsibility. But then to talk about my approach, what do I think? Did I get like incredibly lucky? I would say yeah, right away. I was like, I would say that I got into like really, really good schools, except I did have varied experience as well. The first school I ever ended up in, I could tell they were a little bit apprehensive when I first showed up, and they were like, oh, we have very lively kids here, and I hope you're patient. And I was like, oh yeah, it's no worries. I mean, they're high school kids. I was in high school. You've seen all of it. And there were like kids who were like got in fights, like physical fights with the teachers there. But everything in life, everything, I would say comes down to perspective. And also, if you set yourself up expecting to go anywhere in the world, this has something to do with Japan because Japan is somewhere in the world, but if you go anywhere in the world, expect, and then this is echoing many times that I've said in other videos, a variety of experiences. Our lives would be very boring if they were one-dimensional, positive all the time, and you even see in human nature a sort of draw towards self-destruction, I think, to keep life interesting. So we inevitably come across varied experience, and the way that you can deal with that experience better is not to have a sort of cynical outlook that inevitably you'll have it and so you'll just have your head down. But I was reading a book recently, it's really, really interesting, it's called The Telomere Effect, and it's talking about this portion of our chromosomes that's responsible for cellular renewal, cellular genesis, and how they change their ability to like stick around and last into old age and give you a healthy long lifespan is dependent a lot on the stress that you have in your life, but not just your stress, but your reaction to that stress. And they were kind of breaking it down in the book to, there is a fear response to stress and there's a challenge response to stress. And if you have resilient responses to stress, it can actually develop you as a person. And so accepting that there will be elements of stress everywhere in your life, it's not going to go away, you can potentially, like we're talking scientifically proven, with a good perspective, turn that stress into something that builds you up. I'm not saying that we don't all have down days. I'm not going to do one of these videos where I discuss in depth that I have bad days. Of course I do. I don't think you need to be told that, although I'm not shitting on people who've shared that idea. It's something to consider. You know that. Everybody has these days, but I guess I am talking about, as opposed to acknowledging it, the sort of way to confront that, the approach that you should have to it. And I really do think if you look at stressful situations that arise in your schools, arise in your everyday life, is a challenge and something to overcome that could enrich you, you'll do really, really well for it. One of the best lines in this book, without listing the whole thing, maybe I'll put that down in the comments. I highlighted it in the book. It was so good. And it was talking about the idea that beautiful people don't just happen. Beautiful people are almost always the result of suffering in a strange way. It's because they've had this depth and breadth of experience and confronted it in a healthy way that they've deepened their character. And so I think about that for all these different things that have happened to me while I've been here. If you want to become a beautiful soul, then you need to not maybe seek out stress, but embrace it when it occurs for you. And that's the number one rule, is not eliminating it, accepting it, and approaching it with maybe a different perspective than you had before, backed by medical science. I'll probably put that in the links down below. The book was published on January 3rd, 2017. So this is hot, fresh science, which I know, or I don't know, but you should get behind if you aren't. And it's really, really interesting. So that's mostly it. I'll say it again, and I'll say it in other videos after this, because you never know who's new watching this one. But perspective, approach, and accept the variety of experiences that occurs in our life. And that's kind of how I do it. And now I'll go turn the camera off and cry in the corner because life's so difficult. No, just kidding. It's actually pretty good right now. I'm very happy. Stoked for the weekend. Watch for that video. I'll put all my social media down below. This was written by, I won't give a full name for privacy's sake. Oh, I won't have to worry. This is from, thank you for your insight, Extreme XC29. So thank you for writing me, Extreme XC29. And there's some thoughts, some reflections on your questions. I'm sorry about the Dr. Pepper, you may have to Google that one. But yes, follow me on all the social media that I flashed down below. I will catch you guys in the next video. I may do one more couch therapy this week, but it's going to be a big focus as I end this video. I'm going to work on continuing to edit the one that I'm working on. Oh, it's glorious, glorious. And yes, as I said already, I will catch you in the next video. Ciao for now. Check out the videos following this one. Playlists. Peace.